Hello everybody, Darren here, and welcome back to Satisfactory. Now, I've got a sort of a Christmas special today, a double bill. 2 hours of working on my Copper and Caterium factory. This build is really big, and for that, I am sorry. It's much bigger than I had anticipated. As always, though, you can find all the accompanying documentation, the floor plans, the blueprints, and more in the description. And with a little bit more work on this factory, perhaps in the next video, I'll give out the save file then too. There's still just a little bit more to be done, but I can happily say that I make a lot of good progress today, and we do power it on at the end. But before we begin, this behemoth of an episode was made possible thanks to a sponsor. Have you ever watched a sci-fi movie where you see thousands of ships duking it out in battle and wondered, how the hell did this all come together? How does the economy work, and how long did it take them to mine it, build it, and deploy them? Are there competing companies vying for power and dominance on some galactic market somewhere? Well, it turns out yes, and that's what Prosperous Universe is. It's an ultra-realistic economic simulator set across the galaxy. It's online, it's free, and it can be played in your browser. Every resource and commodity is provided by real people. You start with your own company and can decide in this sandbox to mine resources, design ships, deliver and trade, play the stocks, all in a massive player-driven economy. Every price is determined by supply and demand on a real-time exchange, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's crazy ambitious. The game is free to play, but there's an optional purchase of a pro license that gives you some more advanced features, which are more geared towards mid to late game players. You interact with the game through a customizable UI called Apex, allowing you to focus on what you want, as you can be a cutthroat CEO, a political leader, an explorer on the fringes, or just some guy mining a desolate planet keeping things local. So go check it out at prosperousuniverse.com, and please do click the link in the top comment or the description, which will take you right there, but it'll just let them know that I sent you. Thanks again to Prosperous Universe for sponsoring this video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today's the day. We're finally going to actually attempt to turn on the Copper and Caterium factory and finally start producing some copper ingots at the very least, before we then decide what to do with them. So, over on the right hand side of the screen, there is still a tremendous amount of things to do. First off, we're going to start by building out the fleet of trucks that are going to carry the copper ore into the facility. Then we're going to build out a dedicated power management room, create a belt release system, which is, we'll see, do some signs and cosmetics just to take a break, and then hop back out, build a fuel station, sort out all the miners and the roads and all the connections, create the truck routes that feed into the factory, and then power it on. How difficult could that be? This is an easy factory, remember? I said it was easy. I said it can't be that hard. I'm gonna kill myself now, I'm joking. This has been a blast to build, but it is complex. So, let's get started. Building a fleet of trucks. That's right, trucks, not tractors. So, I'm here at the hub starting base. So, one of the things I've done on a stream of mine recently, I've never actually built any products or anything like that I've never done in the video, but the streams I'll often do cosmetics, or I'll hook certain things up to awesome things. So if you ever see extra belts and things and you're like, what the hell, what's going on now? I basically just go around and try to keep the machines running by making sure that they're overflowing out into different things. So that's all you know, if you're paying attention, what's changed since before. But anyways, I've taken the time to actually create some of the stuff we need for the industrial manufacturing milestone. So this is going to give us access to a manufacturer, something that has 4 inputs. Takes a lot of power, it's 55 megawatts, and it can produce more advanced goods as a result. Now, the milestone cost for this is actually motors, plastic, rubber, and cable. Just want to refresh people's memory, at the very beginning of the previous episode, I set up a very small little oil production area just next to our coal facility, just creating a little bit of plastic and rubber in the background. So as long as you've been saving that up the way I have, it's not a big deal to hopefully just gather about, you know, a couple hundred together and kind of advance this milestone. The only thing that we don't automate is motors. I'd like to call semi-automate that, semi-automatic. And what I mean by that is we've got a little makeshift area here. 3 assemblers that are making stators, and 1 assembler that's making motors. Motors take stators and rotors, and we automate rotors, we automate steel pipe and wire. So on the far side there's 2 containers with steel pipe and wire, creating us some assemblers, or sorry, going into the assemblers, creating us some stators, and that's mixing with the already made rotors. So that's why I call it semi-automatic. It requires us to come here and just dump some rotors into this, and dump some steel pipes and wire into that. But other than that, Other than that, it's automatic. Anyway, you get the idea. Just the point is that you should have some motor production going in the background if you're following along, and if you're just watching, just want to let people know where we've been creating them. It's not a dedicated factory. The other milestone we can also do is the gas mask milestone. Now, this is a bit of a redundant milestone. It might shift in the future with future updates or something, because we can just blow up the pillars that create a lot of the gas. Now, there are creatures that make gas and things like that, so you could still have a need for it, but generally speaking, you don't really need it. But I do want those inventory slots. So that's going to also require a bit of rubber, some plastic, and some fabric. Now, fabric we've made before. It's mycelia and biomass. Mycelia can be gathered from mushrooms, or I think when we were actually chopping down some of the coral and things like that out towards the Blue Crater coal power plant, I had gathered a bunch of mycelia from that. Always hold on to everything you make. And well, that'll come back up later. Alright, so with that in mind, let's feed these things. So we're going to feed in all the rubber, feed in the plastic, feed in the fabric. I'm not going to hit that button just yet. We're going to select a different milestone, industrial manufacturing. As mentioned, a manufacturer, more importantly, a truck, computers, modular engines, and adaptive control units. These are, don't worry about them. We'll get to them in future. They're going to start getting fairly complicated. It's for the space elevator. We're just really interested in the truck. Alright, select that milestone, dump in all the cable, the rubber, the plastic, and the motors. And now we can hit that beautiful button. But before we're done, we'll just hop back over to that other milestone and hit the button again. Alright, the manufacturer increases production complexity, no doubt. Now, in mentioning that you always want to hold on to everything, in order to actually build trucks, we're going to require circuit boards. You can actually see that I've gone ahead and already made some heavy modular frames. If you check the bottom right of the screen there, I've got 14 in the inventory. We'll talk about that in just one sec. But circuit boards. Now, we've never made circuit boards before, I don't think. And in order to do so, you need copper sheets and plastic as a default recipe, but I did pick up an alternate recipe that lets me use plastic and quickwire. Again, on one of my semi-automatic areas, we had a container full of quickwire, thanks to one of the first truck routes we ever set up, and when Henry tried to kill me, if people remember that. But I had actually disconnected that truck route a while ago, so I just have a container full of quickwire I've been using, but I'm not actually producing any right now, but it's more than enough to carry us for a while. Anyways, long story short, if you remember going out to all of the various hard drive sites that we've been to, I've picked up over 100 circuit boards already, so I'm just going to use them. But if you don't have them, if you threw them away, or you never picked them up in the first place and you're following along, I would just advise using that little bit of plastic we make, gathering some copper sheets that you hopefully make as well, throwing it in an assembler, and just cranking out about 100 circuit boards is what you're going to need if you want to make about 10 trucks, which is what I'm aiming to do. Alright, so with all that in mind, we're just going to drive over to the area where we have black powder, this little platform area. That's where I think I'm going to build this little manufacturer, just to take care of making some heavy modular frames in the background. Don't want to be manually crafting them every time. So, last thing we can check is heavy modular frames. This is going to require modular frames, steel pipe, encased industrial beam, and screws. We automate all of those things. Modular frames and screws come from my modular frame factory, and the steel pipe and encased industrial beams come from my steel factory. It's just a matter of bringing them to this location, and then just hooking it up to a manufacturer, and then it can just make them in the background for us. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I've already taken the time, as you can see, to lay out a bunch of containers here. This one's got pipes, this one's got beams, this has modular frames, and this has screws. You're going to need a lot of screws, so I decided to add 2 containers back to back. Alright, whew, let's plop down this manufacturer. So, it takes 10 heavy modular frames in and of itself, so you're going to have to craft a few, and I just wanted to save you guys time by doing it off screen. So get down our first manufacturer, and I'm just going to, turn this on every time I need some for a while, and then eventually, obviously, we're going to build a factory dedicated to it. Okay, so with this, we'll just select the heavy modular frames. We're going to drag belts into all of the inputs. And if we check the recipe, we can actually see that if we wanted just to keep the machine running as standard, not that it really matters because we're semi-automated, right? We're filling these things manually. It requires 200 screws per minute, so I would say that this belt could be a Mark III then, feeding as fast as we can. And finally, I'll just grab a little container, face it around this way. Maybe add a little bit of extra room out on this side to bring the belt around. Pull that belt out. And send it in. Alright, now it's just a matter of hooking it up to power. Let's color it. There we go. Make it look cool. Power line, boom. Has its recipe. And stuff is now flowing. So there we go. We have semi-automated heavy modular frames. Again, really just so I can make, I'd say, about 10 trucks in total. And we're going to have to wait for it to make at least one, and then we'll do that to create our first truck for ourselves. So just while we're waiting for it to fill on up, actually we can just take a quick look. Yep, it's just powering on now. It's actually got a really cool animation if you've never seen it before. It doesn't, you don't actually see it making the heavy modular frame. It's kind of a generic item or whatever, but it looks really cool and it's quite satisfying to watch. Long animation though. The turnaround time for manufacturers are quite long for most things, so it can take quite a while. But one of the coolest bits is when it inserts that glowing hot rod right in the little hole. Love to see it, and then it spins it in and everything. But I'm not going to wait here. I'm just going to tease you with that. So... So something I just wanted to talk about really quickly, other things that I've semi-automated would be we have black powder production down here, and that's what this area is doing. So I just have one truck delivering things back and forth. It's basically heading out to, sorry, it's a tractor, going back and forth to a station out here where we've actually got a sulfur miner. I might just actually mark that as sulfur production. Select an icon. I've been selecting the little pioneer icon for all of these things, coloring it generally based on the color of the item. Sulfur is kind of a yellowish, brownish color. And then doing that. So there we go. We can see that just sitting out on its own, it's a production area with a pioneer. But if it's a factory, I've gone with the icon for an actual factory. And the bigger the factory, the bigger the icon, basically, is what I've done. And I feel like that kind of denotes the map fairly well. Anyways, so black powder production is here. This thing is totally full up of black powder, and the rest is just rolling into an awesome sink now. So that's been running for quite a while. The last important thing with that, it's mixing sulfur and coal. The coal is coming all the way down from... basically down there. Again, we can maybe just list this so I can always remember it. Coal production. Obviously, it's just a miner sending it up here, but it's good to just have it on the map to know exactly where everything is, especially when you're trying to track down power. So there we go, coal production. And does that show up on the map for me? It does. Yeah, so we can see it on the compass, I mean. Because, yeah, we're going to use that in future. We're going to use this area to refuel all of our trucks, so it's just kind of important to see it and to know where it's coming from. All right, in a few seconds, our heavy modular frame is going to roll out. I've no doubt one or two have come out. Yeah, there we go. We've got 3 already, just like that. Boom. These things are the bane of many players in Satisfactory, mostly because of the screw intake. It's just extremely high volume, so it's tough to deal with. So cool that you can see our factory just looming over the horizon in the distance as well with a little bit of fog. All right, can we grab that? Yoink. Okay, so we should have enough now to build our first truck. So let's get cracking. Truck. These things are chunky in Update 8. Let's just grab a little bit of coal. In fact, I'm going to grab as much coal as I can carry. They have 48 slots in them. So we throw that in the back. Should give this a nice little color as well. Maybe we'll make it a kind of a bluish color. Maybe blue and yellow. There we go. It's my What Darren Plays color. It's going to pick up the old Explorer as well. And we'll drive over... Ah, it's had coal in the back of it also. Let me dump the rest of that in here. Pick up that little crate and then we can get moving. Yeah, so that manufacturer's just going to keep rolling, and hopefully it can make about 50 heavy modular frames with the amount I've given, I think, roughly around there. And then we'll come back a little bit later and make the rest of these trucks. But that's basically the first one made, and then we'll automate the rest in the future. Just thought it was worth getting that set up here early on, because of course we're going to need them when we actually build all the roads and the miners. Oh my god, this thing has got such heft and such weight to it. Now, these rocks are kind of in the way, so using that black powder, I was able to make some nobelisks. Just going to plant some C4. Alright, so I planted some bombs. We're going to clear these rocks. Easy peasy. Now we're free to roll through. Alright, there she is. Copper Caterium Factory. So I should have everything I need to pop back down that Explorer, and we'll just refuel it with some coal. Because I'm going to use that to drive around inside the factory, basically. I could give that its little colors as well, so they're like little buddies now. Big brother and baby brother. How cute. Alright, so what we're going to start with is the power management room inside of here, and I'll try to explain that as I go. Oh, I didn't really mean to bring the circuit boards with me. Anyways, so I've got a whole selection of new blueprints, and a new section here called Power. Of course, all my blueprints, as mentioned, they're out there for free. If you see them in an episode, you've got them. Just go to the description, whatdarrenplays.com/satisfactory, They're free for everybody. Appreciate those who are channel members. Appreciate those who are liking the videos and such positivity in the comments. I mean, it's really, really nice. I don't know how else I can just say it other than saying I really genuinely do appreciate it. It's just overwhelmingly kind. So you guys can have them for free. All right, so we have then 3 categories: switches, cable management, and power connectors. We'll talk about this as we get a bit further, but this is what I want to use, these wall brackets. So I think we're going to need roughly 8, but let's just say 10, and we're going to gather all the materials I need for them. So some AI limiters, quartz crystal, quick wire. I've got all of this stuff just located down here and all my containers. So I'm just going to grab all the materials for that. Alright, so I've got pretty much everything I need. I was a little short on quick wire, but we can always just go make a quick run for that because I've got it back at the base. So I just wanted to quickly talk about some of the updates and changes to the factory since last time. You can see that I've painted the floors with coated concrete, so I had to unlock that in the Awesome shop. So if you're following along, you're going to have to do that as well. It's quite easy. You just need 2 plastic per tile to put it down. Obviously, you need concrete if you're putting a fresh one down, but I mean to just upgrade it and replace, all you need is 2 plastic per tile. So I was able to just run over this really quickly, and where all the walkways are, just put down this width of 3 coated concrete across, and it looks great, especially when we turn on global illumination, which is off right now, just to brighten up the factory a little bit. When that's on, the reflections and everything looks awesome with coated concrete. So the other thing then would be that the towers are now all in position as well. I might put some extra windows on the inside and stuff, but I just want to get all their positions sorted and make sure that they have staircases and things like that. All of the refineries for copper ingots, which are all the ones in front of me here, they're all done now and all in position, and they're all hooked up. Oh no, I've missed a little bit of piping just at the very end. That might be right where I ran out, but they all are hooked up as well now. The other thing, the only thing that's actually changed with the factory, right, since the previous episode was I had a tower in the very center so we could get up and down without having to run to one of the edges. I've removed it because the logistics downstairs was getting... It was basically not symmetrical anymore with a tower of that size in the center here, and the tower itself wasn't symmetrical either because it was a 3x3, so it was something like here, I think. It would have been like this. And I realized it was too close over to these machines, so it just didn't really make any sense, and I ended up just getting rid of it. So that's the only thing that's changed. Underneath, the logistics, I guess the logistics have changed just so slightly, so I'm going to try to not scare you off right now, but we're going to have a little look at the logistics downstairs, just very quickly, to not get too bogged down with it. So I'm just going to hop down the floor, and here we are, running into a ladder straight away. So, if you remember, we have our 8 stacked belts rolling in, right, from all the way from over towards the truck station. So the truck stations are all the way over there, and we've got 8 belts traveling along this way. We have belts, blocks A and B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then we have H and I, J, K, L, M, and N. And some of these belts, I don't know where, but actually have little signs on them to let you know where they're going. Alright, so here's the nightmare. And here's what's changed. I mean, you can just look at... All I can do is say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I said that this wasn't going to be a complicated build, and I just straight up lied. I didn't lie. I didn't realize how complicated it would be. I mean, look at this. What a nightmare, huh? It's actually relatively simple. Trust me. It's just because the volume is so high, it looks like there's lots of crisscrossing belts, but it is actually straightforward enough. And what I'm going to do is make this, now that everything is in place and I know it, I can make a logistics map that'll be up alongside the blueprints and everything else so that people can see exactly what's happening. But don't be scared. You can do it. Even if you're new to the game, you can do this. It's not that bad. I promise you. So let's just take a quick look at what's happening. So previously, the turn in the belts was here, and I was bringing all 8 down alongside this foundation all the way down. And then I had to do this like up and over thing with the belts and stuff. All that stuff has changed now. The positioning of everything else is all the same, right? Obviously, the machines are in the same places. I've now listed every block by their letter, and then we're feeding the outputs upstairs, the glass cases, as it were. So very quickly, what's actually changed is the stack of 8 belts has been moved over to the very center of the line between the blocks. And that was the original intention. People might have noticed, if they did look at the blueprints that I gave out, there was a blueprint in there for an 8-belt split, an 8-belt split, and then individual blueprints for single stacks, right? Stacks of 1 rather than double stacks like this. That was there because this was the original plan, and for some reason during the build, I must have gotten confused and just changed it. I think it was really all down to that tower that was in the center there, throwing me off. That tower is gone now, so now it's like, because it was three across, right? So it was just too much, so it meant that things were uneven, and that was throwing me off. Now that we've just got a gap of 2, we could put in maybe a 2x2 tower. That might make sense, but we'll leave that for the future, maybe a cosmetics-focused video or something like that. But anyways, here we go. Split happens, and we start traveling down. Now, if you remember, every belt has one splitter on it, because they're going to 2 locations. This is belt AB, CD, EF, and G. So only the top one only goes to one place, but all the other ones have a little splitter on them somewhere. Right, so we split here to go into Group A, and then this belt will just continue all the way down. Without a splitter, it'll just turn and go into this one to go into B. And that's it, right? That's where that goes. Every time it's going into a block, it does split one more time to feed each row, and that's basically it. The same thing is happening for water, just coming up from downstairs. We have a single pipe that then gets split between Group A and B. And just the exact same way that we have the splitter here, we have a junction here. So it splits it between that row and then that row. And that's just duplicated over and over and over again between all the blocks. Except for the last one, which I guess I could show as well, just to let people know. Something else I wanted to catch people up on. A lot of people said, hey, you don't need a valve because the pipeline acts as a valve. That's kind of true, but not really. The pump prevents backflow, and so does a valve, so that's true. But the valve lets you set the rate. So you can actually set the flow rate. And we're going to be doing that. So that's why we want a valve. Plus, they're just kind of cool. but really, it's more about setting the rate. Now, you could argue you don't need to set the rate. When we power it on, we'll have a look at it. I like the idea of setting the rate, and it works when you set the rate. So if you want to have it work, do what I'm doing. Okay, the very final thing that would be different then would be the outputs, right? So we can only actually handle 5 outputs in terms of our best belt speed right now. So the outputs, they travel down and they travel along, and then just here, they go all the way up to the ceiling and then out to their respective, glass case. So this is all outlined in the previous episode again, but I'll put it in the files, and trust me, I'll make it as clear as possible. It should be nice and clear how this all gets divided up. But effectively, we have A1 and A2. So each individual row has its own output. A1, A2, B1, B2. And because the cases are kept together, it just means that you got to bring some of the furthest belts along a little further than you'd otherwise like to, but the principle is the same for every one of them. They all go up to the same height, and a good way to gauge the height is from the ceiling. You get a ceiling mount, you put one down, you just put another one below it, and that's the height I've gone with. If you want to work out what that is in terms of a lift, I think you bring this all the way up to the top, right, until it's not clipping, and then down 2. And that's that. That's how you get them to line up. And that's what I did for everything. So all of these have been brought down by 2, by 2, by 2. And then we have our 2 ceiling mounts. And then the outputs that are coming back out rise to that same level. And they all just like connect with right angles to make it kind of look a bit nicer. So I know it's a lot. I do get it, especially if you're kind of newer to the game and you've been following along, and the coal plant is a bit of a nightmare, and now this is just like, how can anyone do this? I do think with blueprints it's a lot more manageable, but I can appreciate this is a bit nasty. I just didn't think it was going to be that bad with all the belts, but here we are. And it's too late to go back now. So the next factory is going to be way more simple, and future factories as well, and we won't depend on this too crazily for a while, so maybe it could be, if you're really scared, you could just maybe ignore it, or maybe just play the game from my save or something like that. That could maybe help. Alright, very last thing then, I keep saying that, but the belts all travel along, and you can see the further along we go, we lose a belt on the bottom each time. So we're feeding block C and then block D, and then we lose that belt because it's gone in there, so we're just down to 2 belts now. Then we're feeding block E and F, and then by the time that one's gone, we're just left with 1 belt here. And that goes, it's the final one that just goes back into G. And that's it. So the only difference then for this last one would be, because they're only receiving 1 belt each, so the group N and the group G, because they're sort of like their final group together, the water pipe for them splits differently, right? Instead of going to the right and to the left, it's going to the left, but then curling around and going into its area. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, but like I said, diagram will hopefully show everything. So, welcome to the basement. This is where our water extraction is handled, and in the previous episode, I'd left you off right about here. This is the first row. This is the row of water extractors that are feeding the blocks of A and B. Every row feeds 2 blocks, and every row has 5 water extractors on it. The difference is, since the last episode, would be that I've now replaced the concrete with a catwalk, a metal catwalk, and I've widened it just slightly so it's about 1.5 foundations across, painted the machines, and hooked them up to power. It's worth noting that the first 2 extractors are the only ones we can actually utilize right now. The other 3 are for later, so we can reconnect that pipe if we want. All of the other rows are now done. Almost. Little asterisks, we'll put a pin in that just for a second. But this is basically what the place looks like. So now we've got this nice catwalk going around the whole place, and it just gets widened right when there's going to be the extractors, and it just shortens back into 2 across. They connect to every tower, so at least we can get up and down a little bit better. And that's basically it. Now, a little behind the scenes. I've talked this through many times, many hours ago in this recording. That's right. I've been recording for a long time. But I made a bunch of mistakes, and I wanted to correct the record, and I decided that's got to be removed. So you're probably going to see some things, like what's up here. That hasn't happened yet. This will happen in the future in the video. Probably not too long, actually, in the future. This is cable running. It's to do with power management. It was the next thing on the to-do list anyway. So I just wanted to let you know I'm inserting this, further, closer to the beginning of the episode, because I realized mistakes later on. Here's the mistake. Early on, I had said that there were 6 pipes traveling upstairs. It's not true. There's supposed to be 7. There is 6 right now, but I forgot one. And I'll just show you where it is really quickly. It's there. It's tucked into this little corner, and I missed it. So I just need to, it's not a big deal, I just need to build another one of these lines over there. So basically the blocks of H and I don't have water right now, but every other block does. So just to illustrate how this is all laid out, we have blocks A and B are traveling up here. So you'll remember this was my sort of scaffolding. It was just to let us test the pumps and pipes and things and just make sure everything is good. The other ones don't have that because I'm trusting that it works. So they don't have that, and they have a little bit of a different look and feel to them. The main thing being this. They've got these frame pillars going around them to kind of make it look like it's got some structure to it, some structural integrity to it. Now I'm just in the process of actually changing out how I do the power here, so I'll mention that in just one second, because everything's going to be activated via power switches. It's a whole thing, but basically pumps are going to be activated via a switch here, because you can't reach those ones without some staircase. And I just thought it'd be kind of, I always like to try and make it somewhat immersive and fun. It's like, oh cool, if you want to activate or deactivate them, not that we probably ever will, you could just do that at a switch here. We'll talk about all that later though, so don't worry. Anyways, we have A and B blocks. We have C and D, and then at the end, E and F. That's 6. There is a 7th block on the far end, G. And then the 7th block on this end is N. That's handled by the pipe that's all the way down at the end here. So it's on the right side, but it actually feeds 2 blocks. I just thought it was worth mentioning, just so people can get an orientation on that. And that's why I got confused about where my hidden pipe was. So this one's going to be H and I, J and K, L and M. So the only odd one out is the sort of G and N one at the end. Right, so those are the blocks that that's doing. Alright, so we'll turn all this on later and track it down, but I just thought it was worth mentioning, worth showing off the area, seeing as I had done that before, and I'm going to cut it off. Damn, I have to get my feet wet now. It's going to be getting in my socks. Alright, so the power room is going to be here in this 4x12 little slot that's been left. I originally, in the floor plan document, said that this was just going to be nothing, just a big open walkway, like there's nothing here, because it just was a separating point between refineries. But it turns out we can make use of this space and do something quite nice with it. So to get us started, I'm just going to put down some walls. We're just going to block it off. And it can go all the way up to 7. So 6 from here, because we already have the one on the bottom. I'll put some windows on it and stuff, but for now we're just going to completely seal it. So, that's the abomination that we've created. A giant metal, grey, depressing rectangle. Let's go inside, shall we? So, the doorways are placed in the center here because we're going to be mainly using these central two foundations. So, first thing I want to do is just actually change that to coated concrete. So, we'll just start here and go all the way to the edge, and then bring it back. Just using some of that plastic. Alright, so we've got a concrete center to it now. Alright, let's break out the blueprint and see what's going on. So we have a power switch wall bracket, and this is basically what it looks like. So if I was to lock that in place really quickly, we can see all these little power switches here, and then around the back we have the outlets here for connecting to the mains, and then we have the outlets here for connecting to the machines. I'll show you exactly what we mean by actually just doing it and placing it. Best way to show it is just by example. Alright, so we need a gap of one foundation across there. So effectively, we have this center point of the confluence point of 4 foundations. I want to cover that with the metal pillar we have here, yeah? We'll lock it in. Let that get built. Alright, that's what we've got. So it's not obviously fully complete just yet. And I've actually got different variants of this, right? So we could, if we wanted to, if we just snap to that. Oh, I guess you can't lock it in place and change it. But I was going to say, I've got a variant here for just 3. I've got one for 1. We have it for the same kind of idea, but for light switches. And then one for like all of the regular power switches. So 7 is the most I could fit between 2 foundations without clipping over the foundations. So 7, 3 if you wanted less, 1 if you want less, and then light switches. I didn't make any smaller ones for the light switches. Again, you could always just remove the individual power switches if you didn't want any more. Or whatever. I just thought I would kind of make it a little handier to use. So we'll switch back to blueprint mode. And we'll aim to the side here. So again, with the way the blueprints are done, you have to just nudge it over by 2. You can do that by locking the blueprint in place with H. And then nudging it with the arrow keys. People ask every video, man, how you do that. So I feel like it's worth mentioning every time. Alright, so we just do this again. And bring this all the way down until there's just a gap on the other side. Alright, so we have a huge series of power switches now, all laid out for us. Right, so I was just kind of thinking how best to explain this. So we've got 7 power switches in front of us, and then another 7, and so on and so forth. You may remember that there are 14 blocks of machines making copper ingots. I think then there's 3 blocks doing Caterium ingots, and there will be 2 for the refineries doing copper sheets. And then lots of different blocks for assemblers, which I just have not worked out yet, making all sorts of smaller things. So that kind of just works out, because 7 could control half the blocks, and then another 7 could control another half of the blocks that are doing copper. So that's what we're going to do. So if we have a look at this, we go around to the back. This is the mains, right? This is mains power, so you want all of these to be connected the whole way across, because they're feeding one side of the power switch. I should probably just build a power switch and talk through that, because I don't think, just in case we've got someone who's never seen one before. If you just have one on its own here, it's very simple, really. Let's say that this is our main power grid here. We can feed that onto A or B. It's up to us. But I always like to have mains power going to A, where I can. And then B is going to go to the machines. And then when you look at this, if you switch it on, the idea is that now the power can flow between A and B. If you switch it off, it can't. And that's really as complicated as it gets. Later on, we'll have priority power switches. I haven't unlocked those yet, and I've actually never used them. We could probably, I know roughly how they work, we could probably do with having one gated on top of the entire factory, but I don't think we need them for the individual components of the factory. I think that's just a little too extra. But maybe in the future, who knows if we ever decide to change something. But I'm happy with the overall system for this. So, how do we then, if each of these is only controlling, like it's sending its wire out and then up, right? That's what each of these are doing. They're receiving, the A switch is receiving something from the behind the wall, right? That's the mains power is coming into the A switch. And then out the B side, it's heading up towards these ones. And we're going to send it up upstairs. Now we can also bring it downstairs. We might have to do that in future as well, later on the episode. But for now, we're going to send it up. And I wanted to keep it within one foundation. So that way, it'll work with one of these other blueprints I've made. Right, so the goal then is to get these 7 outlets to feed all the way across the factory into one of their own, into each individual block. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, right? That's our 14. So we could say that this is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. All right, it's weird actually that they have yellow lights. You'd think that not being hooked up to any power right now, they'd be red. But I think when you just connect to anything, it just becomes yellow. All right, okay, so we need to send it upstairs. Although, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Ultimately, we want to finish this room first. So maybe let's just put I want to put a doorway here, right in the center. This is going to just continue up as a wall all the way to the very top. And then from here, we're not going to latch onto the actual wall itself. I'm going to latch onto the steel beam. So just sit on top. And that's going to come up to 3. And that way, it'll go right to the ceiling as well. So just go across all the way to the end there. And this way we're going to be given the effect of coming into a room that, you know, ultimately is smaller than it looks. And then it's kind of like a little extra door to go around behind the scenes and see what's going on. And I'll probably put some LED strips or lights back here to see, just so we can see things when global illumination is turned on. Alright, there we go. So there's our wall of lots of switches. And if we don't need any, we just remove them. Not a big deal. Okay, so how do we make this work upstairs? So we'll head in here. We have a look at our where it's going to be coming up from, and I'm just going to cut this foundation here up to the ceiling above, and then we're going to go upstairs and have a look at what we can do with that. Before going upstairs, I thought it was good to highlight the actual blueprint that we're going to be using here. It's called the steel cable runner. Steel bars with power connectors hanging from them, designed to keep cables separated for cable management, or for power management. So this is what it looks like here. I'll just place one down right now, and then I will just latch another one onto it. It's designed, it has to be used with another one, basically. Alright, so using those metal bars that we just used a second ago, you can see that we have just power outlets hanging down from beneath them. And the idea is that you just very simply connect up your cables. And it's just to keep your cables nice and neat and tidy. And so on, right? And you just keep doing that. And that way we'll have this nice thing. So we can use this and like snap it to the roof if we want. And then what we have to do is just cut the bottom bit out. And then we have like, you know, cable runners running along the ceiling. If you want to remove them all at once, the blueprint deletion still works. So that's great. Now, if it's a little hard to see for some people, I made another variant where it's very colorful. It arguably is a bit too colorful, actually. But it'll let you actually split these bars off later, and then you could say, like, okay, yeah, the red bar goes that way. I don't know, the orange bar goes that way. And you could track it like this if you wanted to. So you can use either variant. I'm probably going to use this one for the most part, but this one's definitely easier to see what's going on. Another way you could do it is maybe just make alternating colors so that you can just split them a little bit, so you just know, okay, yeah, every second color, like just to help focus, you know, because it can be a little distracting where the cables are going, the way they hang down and everything. So up to you if you want to change those colors and just resave the blueprint if you decide to use it, but I'm going to be going with this. So let's get rid of this and head back upstairs now to bring the cables up from inside the power management room. Alright, so we know that our first block of machines are coming up this way, so let's just get rid of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I've just carved a 4x1 hole out of the ground here. We're just going to lower this down onto it, this blueprint. And just make sure it's aligned by locking it into place and nudging it over. The outlets are going to be right above the outlets down here. And we lock it in. Alright, it's as easy as that. Now it's just a matter of hooking this up to here. And it's going to be slightly off. I think it's like 1 grid space difference, so we can see there's a teensy bit of clipping going on, but I'm willing to let it go because it's really, really minor. Most people don't care about clipping wires through walls anyway, but, you know, does anyone care about that? Some people might. I'll get over it. It'll haunt me in my dreams, my nightmares, but, you know, I'll get over it. But anyway, one other thing is that we have to just seal this like so. So the fact that it's going pretty much through a seam has me a little happier. There's no way to bring power between floors without just clipping it or going around the floors, because if you place one of these connectors on the ground, you're not allowed to place it on the ground and aim it up vertically. It just becomes a power pole that way. So you do just have to clip the wire through, basically. So I think doing it as neat and seamlessly as possible is a nice way of doing it. Anyways, what we're going to do now is just basically continue this over. So that was 1. So I'm just going to carve out this lane for pretty much as far forward as I can go. Alright, so it's just a matter now of copying this one, switching to blueprint mode, although it might get a little bit in the way with the other things. And just laying this out many times over. Sorry, it might get in the way blueprint mode with the refineries down below because it might overlap slightly. No, it looks like it's actually behaving itself. It's totally fine. Okay, so here we are in this. It feels so weird. It's like we're in the Inception when Paris is like flipping over on itself or whatever. It feels like that's where I am right now. Anyways, we've got the cable runners running right down towards the far end of the machines, right? So if we just cut the ground here and just have a look at where we are, we can see the glass cases down there. We have our central walkway, and then we have 7 blocks of refineries on my kind of left side here, and then we've got another 7 running on the right side. So we've got 7 outlets here. So we're going to try and feed each one of these connectors to each block, right? So we have to connect these blocks up locally together and then bring a cable up. So I've actually got a new blueprint for that I've called a power hive, and it comes in 2 variants, the one with 12 outlets and one with 20 outlets. It's just really a decoration. It's not really anything more complicated than what it is. It's a metal beam with a series of outlets on it. It's just to help organize where power is going to feed to. They're not connected to each other or anything like that. They're all open to having connections, right? So you can do whatever you want with them, feed through each other, take a turn, go up to the raise it higher, whatever the case might be. And that's probably what I'll do, right? Which is, if we put down just another one here, we'll do the 12 outlets. So actually, let me just work out something really quickly. So we've got one there, and then we're going to have another one here. Yeah. Okay, so that's where our outlets are coming up. They're in line with the chimney, and they're just one tile over from the center of a foundation. So we can use the center of a foundation then. Like so. Like this. Let's cut that away for a second, and just join that to here. So now we've got power on this block traveling up to this point. I would probably join it to maybe the middle section. No, we'll go all the way to the top, why not? Alright, we'll just lock that back over. You can do this however you want, by the way. I'm not saying this is the most efficient way of doing it, but this could be an interesting way of doing it. That's the same situation? Yeah, thanks to our symmetry, we've located it in the right spot. Alright, so this can feed to there. And then I said it's going to go all the way to the top. Then, somewhere in the very center, right, this will be between 2. Well, I don't need to cut that, actually. Grab this power hive again. So we brought our cable up to there. I'm going to connect it through. Bring this one over here. Connect it to this bit. This bit here to here. Connect this to there. And just make sure I brought that through, did I? We have now. Okay, so the connection is coming from the refineries up to here, across, and then linked together. So you could just do that down on the ground, but this hides the wires a little bit, so it's kind of nice. So now we've got both of our rows, so one single block coming out of this spot here. And ultimately, we just have to feed it over to the, I think it's the middle point. So the way I'm gauging that is we've got, in the very far distance, 1 block, 2, 3, and this is block number 4. So if this is block 4, then we know that 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where we got to line it up to. So we could just travel this straight across, and we could either use painted beams or not. But just as an example, I'll make it look a bit nicer in just 1 second. Bring it along down to here, and join that on. So now those refineries, this block is now hooked all the way back up to, you know, the 4th breaker over. And that's how we've done it. So I'm going to do that now for all of the machines. But what I'm going to do is we'll just make a little, sever that connection. We want to keep it consistent and use the cable ties wherever we can. So with that in mind, I'm going to break this away. Grab this. And bring it all the way over to about there. Is that locked in? That's locked in. And now, just to keep things more organized, you know, we can say like that's connecting to here. That's connecting to here. And that's connecting to here. And we won't need any more of these in future. I might leave them there actually every time I put these down, just in case we end up putting lights on them or something. But that's just an example of now we can continue the cable running all the way down to the very final block. And we'll join the blocks like I've done here. You don't have to do it that way. It is a very complicated way of doing it. Another lazy way of doing it. And that's where I'm calling you lazy. Just drag your cable over there. And then you've just lined up the 2 rows together, right? The 2 rows are then therefore connected. Alright, there we go. So I've hooked up all of the different blocks now to our cable runners. So there's a lot of redundancies. You know, there's a lot of these power outlets without any connections, a lot of steel beams without connections. If I don't end up using them, just going to probably go over it and remove them, just to simplify things a little bit. Although it can look kind of nice having that kind of symmetry to it, I suppose, just keeping it consistent the whole way down. So effectively the way it's going is we have 7 cables running in this way, and then we have this weird kind of staggered thing going on. So basically off to the left, we have 3 blocks that are connected. So the red pillars are where the connection is actually joining the cable ties. That was just to help me know exactly which ones I've done or haven't. It's another way of telling it's the ones between the chimney stacks. Right, so we've got power sitting outside of my little concrete area down there. Just be making concrete in the background. Just going to drag in the power line into the mains, hook them all up, and then we can flip a few breakers and see if these guys work. So if we try maybe just every second one, right? Just see it, do these line up. So there's H, J, L, and N. So even with just those, by the way, you can see that here's our power line, right? 4,800 production. And we've got a nice max consumption of 2,400. But with these refineries now activated, excuse me, I'm losing my voice at the thought of it, we already go past our current production level just by activating these ones. Not even an entire block, let alone all the extra Caterium and the sheets and the assemblers and everything else that's got to come. The water extractors, dear God. And this is just to activate the machines, not even to activate the water extractors. That's going to be done on one of these other panels. Speaking of panels, I've added all the other panels on the opposite side, except 2 of them I've placed in as light switches. Don't know if I'll even need those. I can't imagine I need 14 different light switches, but maybe, because there's 7 here and then 7 down there. And I don't know if I'll even need all these breakers. But the good thing with this is that the way it was designed is I've kept the power outlets all local to one group of walls or one foundation width. The reason that that's necessary is because I knew that I'd be flipping it on the other side. So the good thing is they don't get in each other's way, right? These go straight up onto that foundation. And conversely, these ones go up to that one. So that's 3 foundations in. And this hopefully is 2, right? 1, 2. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of tough to illustrate that there. I should have had the torch on, actually. Probably would have made more sense. But yeah, so these don't get in the way of those ones. And that way you can have, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 rows of cable runners just running alongside each other if you wanted to. I don't know if I'm going to make use of all that, but this is being done for a reason, by the way, and we'll get to that soon. Right. So these are green. These are online. Let's go check out the corresponding machines. Their lights of these respective blocks should be yellow rather than red. So every second block we should see red lights or yellow lights if it's done correctly. And they're not receiving water or anything else. They're not going to power on. We're obviously not delivering ore, so it's just literally just to see if they will turn on and see if I've made any mistakes here. So we'll start at the very end and just drive alongside it. So I'm seeing yellow lights. That's a good sign. And then we're seeing red lights here. This is really cool, actually. I just think it's pretty cool using... I've never done power management before, but using blueprints and doing that makes it a little bit quicker. But yeah, we're seeing every second row. Looks like it's got what it needs. Oh, we ran out of coal. We should have some in the back here. There we go. Oh yeah, man, they're ready. The other thing is, a lot of these machines got to be turned off. I can only actually operate, with the current belt speed we have, the first 5 in each row. Not in each block, but in each row. So that's 10 per block. So we can cut down on power a lot that way as well. But yeah, it looks like it's all hooked up and working. And the wiring looks pretty good from down here. Alright, so that's pretty... Well, actually, it's not done yet. I got to do this block. So I'm going to do this one next, and then we can move on to the next thing. Alrighty, so it actually didn't take too long to hook up everything. A little bit tedious with all the straight line cables and everything, but from testing, everything seems hooked up and working just fine. I haven't had to reorganize anything, so things are looking good, at least so far. So every single block has 26 refineries in it, and now every block has a corresponding power switch here in the breaker room, and they've now been organized alphabetically without switching any of the signs around. I actually just reorganized the cables, and now things line up the way they should. So, what's the point of this place? Why are we doing this? It's a lot of tedium, a lot of cable management, and for what? What's the gain? So, This place now has a max consumption line of about 13,000 megawatts. Now that's actually including the global power network, because this is power grid A, it's including everything. And if we were to lose everything outside, we could just do some simple math, right? We have 26 refineries across 14 blocks with a consumption each of 30, which gives us about 11,000 megawatts of consumption. That's just the copper ingot refineries, not including the water extractors, the pumps, the Caterium refineries and their water extractors, the truck stations, or any of the assemblers, foundries, constructors, and things that are actually going to be using the ingots for stuff in the future. So we're looking at around a potential of, let's say, about 20,000 megawatts of power. And our current production is 4,800. Like I said, this is a future-proofed factory. It's a factory for the future. And part of that is in when we revisit it, we can just visit the breaker room here and say, hey, we need a couple thousand extra copper ingots. Well, let's flick a switch. That's all we got to do. At least that's the idea. I mean, I can't see anything wrong with it so far. I mean, that is the general idea, is that, hey, when we start making more power, we revisit this place and we flip some breakers. Obviously check the machines, make sure everything's running, but that should be the idea, that we can just power it up as time goes on and as our need for copper increases. Now, the only thing I'm left scratching my head about a little bit is, should I ahead of time decide what every assembler is making? Or should we leave half the factory empty? You know, leave all of these ones, for instance, not doing anything. And that way, when we say, oh man, we're after coming up against a recipe in the future that needs a lot more copper, we can go, okay, that's fine. We can now activate refinery block H. It isn't going into any assemblers or anything. It's just the ingots. We could do something with that in the future. I think that makes the most sense to me. Potentially. But I'll have to think about it. You know, we could use everything for AI limiters, wire, copper sheeting. There's plenty of things we could use it for. And future recipes I can always look up and stuff. But yeah, part of me says like maybe you should just reserve it, you know, to see what's going to happen in the future. Anyway, I digress. The next thing I'd like to do is start hooking up the water extractors. So we have all these groups of power breakers. If we have a look downstairs, actually, just at how many water extractors we have, I think there's 6. Alright, so I'm just down in the first logistics floor. This is the floor beneath the refineries that handles all the water and the ore that's traveling up to them. And I'm underneath where the Caterium blocks are right now. So it's one there, there, and there. And you can see that some of the machines are in place already. In total, we need 65 refineries. 65 is the number that we need because they consume 24 per minute. And that's the amount of Caterium ore that we're going to be able to deliver, which is 780 times 2 is 1560. If we do 1560 divided by 24, we get 65. So 65 machines is what we're working with and what we're going to need here. Now, the difficulty came, and the reason I left it for so long, is that we have 3 blocks. It's different than all the other ones. Ideally, we can fit 26 machines in a block. 26 machines times 24 will be 624. They also consume 24 water. That's too much for a pipe. 624 water would be too much for one pipe to feed one block. And the blocks wouldn't actually line up anyway. There would be 3 blocks, and that'd be 78 machines. So we'd actually be left with one of these blocks left half full. So I decided to try and work it out where we could actually fit them all into each block. You could underclock them all, I suppose, if you wanted to do that. But what I'm going to do instead is just cut down the amount of machines in each block. So instead of 13, I think we'll have about 10, and maybe underclock the one on the end. This way, we can have water pipes go into each block. So one there, that's going to go into that one here, that's going to go into that one. And the reason we need to know this is because I'm doing the power, and I'm going to be running cables along the roof of the basement, which is just what I'm walking on now, right? So as we drill through and go down, I needed to make sure that I wasn't going to be in the way of any of the pipes that are going to be going straight down. And I'm just about not in the way. I'm one foundation over from where my initial target here was. So I just thought it was worth mentioning. You know, people ask me, how do I plan things and work things out? So I basically worked out, like, what can we fit into each of those blocks? How can I divide it all up? What would make sense for the water that we have, etc. And that gives me the spacing to now know how to do the cables. So from here, I guess if I just float for a second, if we just grab maybe some foundation, bring this out for a bit, so I can stand on something. Actually, I can stand in the water thinking about it. So that's where we're starting. So I would say that we need the cable runner to start somewhere like here. It's hard to tell, but is that lined up? Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll lock that in. And then we'll just do that a few times over. I'm getting a little tight for material, so I might have to make a run. Now, this comes baked in with a big foundation on the bottom, but we don't need that. Unless we want to walk along. Actually, I'll keep it there because I'm going to walk along and do the cables. But then after that, we can just remove this foundation. We'll just be left with the metal beams running on top. So I'm just going to run back upstairs now. Run along that and start hooking those guys up. So, this is kind of familiar, isn't it? Remember I said earlier in the episode we're in some sort of weird time loop where things are happening before they should and we'll catch up to it later? Well, we finally caught up to my other self, I think. So, basically, I'm in the process of adding the cable runners. I've worked out that my missing pipe is in the distance, so that's going to be fine. But I thought I should talk through how I'm actually doing the power for this. So, right at the very top, I've added a little node, that one right there, that's just sitting on the steel frame. And that travels straight down and hits this spot right here. And then it goes through to the opposite side, comes out, and then feeds this entire area, right? It feeds all of these water extractors. It also pulls down that cable right there into the A slot of the pump activation. So now, effectively, over at the power breaker room, the power control room, when we turn on this row of extractors, it allows this switch to go on and off. Now, everything should just be on by default, but like I said before, I like to make things immersive, so it's like if we wanted to turn off the pumps for some reason, or reset them, or flush the pipes, or do something, maybe we could switch that off. At least that way we don't have to build something and climb up. We could just do it from here. Potentially. Obviously, if there's problems with the pipes, we probably will end up climbing up just to troubleshoot it. Anyway, so I just thought I would mention that. There used to be a long, power pole walkway going through the center, but I've cut that now because now it's all being handled on the roof, effectively. And I'm just in the process of cutting away the floor that I was kind of running along to do that. So just thought I should catch people up to where the current timeline is. So as an example, we can do it here. So this no longer connects to A. Instead, this will connect to here. This will go across. And this will go all the way up to the top to join on to wherever it's supposed to go. So that's basically what I'm doing for every row right now. Alright, there we have it. So the refineries are still all on, technically. Obviously, they're not receiving anything. The water extractors I powered on, they quickly realized, they're actually spooling up and making water, so I turned them all off. But they do work. It's all good, and we're alphabetically aligned now, so we have water extractor A, B, C, D, E, F. The only one that's obviously the odd one out is the one that does the 2 on the end, which is G and N. And then we have H and I, J, K, and L and M. H and I is the only one that actually I forgot to add the extractors and the pipes, so I still got to do that. But other than that, we're looking good. So I think today we'll power on maybe like A, B, C, and D or something of the refineries and of the extractors and see how that's all going. I would say that that's pretty much it for the power management room. Of course, as we add the Caterium and a few of the other things, the room will change slightly. So I've added some, or like update, we'll send out the different cables to different places, but you get the idea now. Running cables on the ceiling or on the floors, depending where we are, to go into different places. Lights would still be one that I'd have to do, but I might save that for a stream or something where I do the cosmetics. Done the exact same way, right? We're just going to run cables separately to different floors to manage the lights. Let's take a quick look at what the place looks like with global illumination on. I've added these lights up on top, speaking of, and I've just connected it to the back of one of our light switches here. Spoiler alert, I've already looked at it. Played around with it for a little while. So I have it on the lowest intensity, but it's actually still, in my opinion, quite bright. So let's take a look. Now, there are tricks around making it not so bright, such as, it still looks pretty good though, gotta say. I think it looks cool. It's tempting to make the water extractor ones blue, just for a bit of color variety, maybe. I'd have to see what you guys think. So all we have to do is access one of our signs. So these are just labels that are put on the ground, basically. They attach to beams and aim up, so you don't have to do anything terribly fancy to get it to work. So this is an example. If we put a beam there, if we get a sign, it just sits right on it. Yeah, not a big deal. Then inside the actual sign itself, you just click E to mess around with it. You go to layout, choose a layout that has the least amount of stuff on it, and then if it has a text field, just get rid of it, And that's that. Emission strength 3 if you want the brightest type of light. Only really comes into proper effect with global illumination, of course, but it can look pretty good. So what we could do is, just as a test, just change that to blue. So I have a blue saved here, pipe watercolor. So we'll just select that one, and I'll just copy that. So you can copy that by Control C and paste it. The two in the center are actually slightly different. They're 4 meter, not 3 meter. So I'll have to change these colors separately. Just do that. Copy settings and paste them here. Yeah, it has an issue. It doesn't actually save them until you exit out. There we go. Alright, so that'd be blue. And then I guess what we'd have to do is switch the color to blue as well of the actual power breaker. I mean, with the yellow, it's actually a pretty cool effect, isn't it? I think that could be kind of nice. But I'll defer to you. Genuinely. Intrigued to see what you think. I've gone with these sort of teal, blue steel, almost turquoise colored lights. Played around with some different colors, but that's kind of the one I'm happiest with. The thing that's unfortunate is that you can't get rid of those fog rays. Maybe a mod will get rid of it or something, because before global illumination it made sense to have those, kind of, from a visual standpoint. But with global illumination, we've got actual bounce lighting and like ambient lighting and stuff like that. So it feels like fog and mist is already lit up correctly. It doesn't really need these kind of fake rays to do that. And the reason it bothers me just slightly, obviously it's not a big deal, is if you try to block the light with something to make it darker, for instance, I'm not going to do it now, but the fog rays still go through. And it's like, that's a shame. And I was going to use these other types of ceiling lights and these floodlights that I'd use, but they have these big fog ray things like this. They cast these like shadow things, and it goes through walls and floors really far, so I can't really use them too much. But this looks fine. You know, I'm probably just being extremely picky at this point. I mean, things look pretty good, I think. And obviously, just some of these cables are just temporary while I was testing out the lighting and while I've hooked this up to power temporarily as well. But yeah, that's generally the look and feel of the power management room, except for two things, actually. Needs a window, so I was going to put windows here. Alright, so I thought while I had global illumination on, I would actually show off some of the signage that I'm working on, but also just pop in those windows I was talking about. Now, the thing is, there should be, like, there obviously won't be this giant open hole here on the outside. There will be some sort of windows going along this way as well, but it means that you can kind of see in a little bit, which is kind of cool, so kind of digging the look and feel of that. Now, seeing as we're next to one of these towers anyway, I'll just quickly go into the stairwell and show you what I mean by signs. I'm not going to do that many of them, but it's just to overall show you one of these concepts I've been working on. So in the blueprint section, we now have cosmetics as a category, floor sign with light. So if we turn off blueprint mode just for a moment, I'll brighten this up just for a sec. Kind of want to bring it all the way down to about there. And yeah, I think this is a good spot for it. I'll probably have it on the opposite side too. So we just place that in, turn off my torch. What do you make of them apples? Pretty nice, huh? So it took a little while to get it right in the blueprint designer, but I managed to angle a sign down and add that lighting effect to it so that the actual sign is not lit at all. There's no emission strength from it. These have no emission strength. They're set to matte, so that way it just feels like a proper sign, and then this is the thing lighting it up. And because of the way global illumination works, which is it's like distance-based, I don't know how far we need to get from it, but the further away you are, the less light it emits, and then when you get up to it, it kind of like lights the area. It's kind of cool. It's almost like it's motion-based, even though it's not. It's not doing it now, of course, but I've seen it do it before. There we go, there we go, there we go. So yeah, so it's like, oh, that whatever, it's not on, but then as you get down to it, it kind of lights up. I kind of dig that, even though I think it is just a cost-saving measure from a GPU and CPU standpoint. It kind of works. So I had thought about how could I do one just like above a door, and I was just messing around with it. Now this isn't, the blueprint isn't the best because you can't really bring it down that low, but just as an example, I could obviously design it again where I do bring it down low, but that was just another idea. It's like, oh, an exit sign with the same kind of light. I basically just used this because it took me so long to get that, and I can't move it down in the blueprint designer, that I just swapped out the signs to have an exit sign instead, or just something else instead. Obviously it could be anything. But yeah, so I just thought that was kind of a nice little, neat little design. So again, another blueprint for y'all out there who want to play around with that maybe. What else is in here? Oh yeah, and then it's just the light on its own. If you did just want that angled light, just to sit above a door, for instance. So no sign needed, just above the door. Now you could do this, obviously I would need to get rid of the floor and look down, and then you could get it in the right spot. Or you could use the mod that allows you to nudge vertically. I'm hoping in the future that that mod just comes out, or I mean, it gets a full release kind of thing. Becomes part of the game from the developer side of things. So the other thing I wanted to show off just downstairs was something kind of similar. So just very quickly, I'm going to grab this foundation and just drag this. Yeah, let's just drag this out for a second and bring that underneath here. So this is just temporary, just for a second. I've basically got a blueprint, a catwalk with LEDs on a single side. So they have these little signs on their side that brighten it up, make it look kind of nice. And it's not strip lighting, it's more just like a little individual LED rather than running along the whole thing. You could do along the whole thing, that can look nice too. Maybe I will do that, but for now I just have this version. Now I also have it where you just have the LEDs on their own, and they can be kind of more easily placed and spaced more correctly. So let's just place one like there. And then just very quickly, before we even look at it, I'll just hop out to the other side and do the same. Well, you can basically see it anyway, but warm LEDs I've called it. So, oh, they're facing the wrong way. There we go. That's where they're supposed to go. They're supposed to line up with the center of one of these things, and need to be much further down, I guess. Because that's their spacing. So, just to get a feel for that, we'll just get rid of some of the concrete that was here temporarily, just to anchor us. Turn off my torch. And this is what you would have if you were walking along. So it's very subtle indeed, but I kind of like it. I was playing around with that, and I was like, yeah, this is nice. So, I didn't build a catwalk with that in mind, but I have that as a catwalk now. So if you want to build a full catwalk that way, you could. But then when I saw that certain parts of my catwalk get wider, I was like, oh, you know what? It's probably better if I break it into two sides. And that way you could snap them onto each other. So, again, just some blueprints that are out there for you. If you want to play around with them. I'm probably just going to remove them just to keep the consistency everywhere. But I do like the idea of adding that in. Maybe one day if I have some time, I'll go over it. So yeah, that was it really for the signs. The only thing I wanted to mention was just up here. The naming conventions of each floor. So that was the refinement floor. So that's floor 2. So this will just say 2. And it'll say refinement. And I'm not sure if I'll go with blue or what color. I mean, I was kind of thinking the copper teal, not teal, sorry, the copper orange color could work well. Considering it's mostly a copper build, although there is Caterium here as well. Or it could just be any color. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, I like that. Real nice. So just going to build a few of those in the same spot. So if I just go up another floor. This is our smaller floor here. This will be ventilation. So this is 3. And ventilation. So obviously I'll have to go into the blueprint designer and choose a proper color that I'm going to stick with. But I just thought I would mention the naming conventions we're going with. So that's 3, then down up below we obviously have floor 2, then down below we have floor 1. And this will be 1 logistics. So it's also the floor with the truck stations. And then upstairs, floor 4, I think, is going to be logistics 2. Now the bottom floor, you might have guessed already, it's the basement floor, B. So that sign can pretty much be left as it is. Water extraction, B. Alright, so I've just been mapping out what I'm going to do with this floor. We're going to do the belt release room. So, in this area here and in this area here, we have 2 blocks reserved for future use with copper sheet refineries. Wanted to keep all the refineries on the same floor to keep water at the same height and the pumps and all of that. Which means that if we're going to have a pump... I don't know what word I was going to use. I'm going to use satisfying this area. If we're going to have a pump... you know, delivering water to this area, we know that we need 2 foundations next to the beginning of the area to actually feed it. That's the way I've done all the other sectors so far. So that's how we're going to do it here. So that area is in reservation. That we don't have to worry about, right? We forget that. But everything to the left of that, we're all good. Even all the way over to this block, because that's the end of the block. The start is on the far side, and you can actually just about see some of the blue tiling there to indicate where that pipe is going to go in the future. So we're good to use all of this space up to the very 2-tile edge. Yeah, so from there to there. So thinking about that, I'm going to hop down through the little hole we made here, and I put in a floor. So this is 7 walls down, including the half wall, you know, where the ceiling is kind of intersecting with it. So the ceiling is 2 foundations, 2 meter foundations. A wall is 4 meters, so we have a half wall kind of here, if you want to think of it that way. 7 down. And then I'm building foundation to foundation across to the other tower here. At the moment, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across. I think we can go a little further actually in a moment, but we'll just leave it for now. Right, so this is a belt release room. I've never done this before, so it's a little strange. Okay, so let's cut open this area here and this here. We're going to put in 2-meter foundations so we can use floor holes. Floor hole right in the center of each one. Like so. Now, what we need to do is grab our belts and just bring another stack forward here. Do I have quartz crystal on me? Actually, I think I deposited it all. Ah, damn me, I don't. I was going to say I could have used the signed version. It would have been kind of nice, but it's all right. Is it the same gap? All right, that's all good. So, what we're going to do now is basically feed these down. So we'll start here. This is going to be an input. 1 and 2. 3 and 4. 5 and 6. 7 and 8. And we're going to need to grab a conveyor pole, align it with everything, but move it back too. Alright, we'll just line these belts up. We're just doing 1 row for now. And these should snap into their buddies just fine. Okay, so we split off one of our stacks and they're going downstairs. Gonna do the same now on this side, but for the other stack. And I gotta make sure that those are Mark III as well, of course. Alright, so our belts are traveling downstairs. And then we're gonna do the same here, but bring them back up and rejoin them onto this group. So, again, we could just cut away this bit here. Right, so we'll just leave that in place. I don't need to hook that up just yet, just in case it has to change. Right, so we're pretty happy with this. Let's go downstairs now. See what we got. Ow. Alright, there we go. So, in a similar fashion, these are going to have to just come down and join onto each other. So what we could do is start with the bottom one first, or the furthest away one first. Just as an example. And then we're going to need a series of storage containers. This is our, quote, buffer that we don't actually really need. But we'll leave it there anyway. I'll just actually move it out to be in line with the foundation. Can we do that? Actually, there's no point, because it'll get offset in a second anyway. So we'll just line it up so that it's going to be where that thing is. We're going to put this stack on top and just move it all the way across to the very edge, just like so, like that. So locking it in place with either H or whatever hotkey of your choice, and then moving it with the directional keys. Alright, we can get rid of this now. So we'll use a Mark III belt, bring this down, snap it in. Alright, they're all snapped into each other. So again, we're going to do the same on this side. Alright, there we have it. So now every belt that we have coming in, all 8, have a buffer. Now, in thinking about it, this is just for the copper. We'll probably need a separate area or something similar, but just in a different location for the Caterium. Yeah. But that's okay, because the belts are going to be coming in from a different place, so it makes sense anyway. We might be able to use this side of the floor, actually, thinking about it. That would work out very well if we could. So we'll try that. But here's what's really going to take up our space. It's the awesome sinks. So the awesome sinks are a 2x2, basically on the grid, on the foundational grid. Yeah, and for some reason their bounding box comes in further than it looks, but it is a 2x2, basically. Actually, could we push it back? It looks like we can. Maybe I'm a little wrong. It's a 2x1.8 or something like that. Okay, cool. So we'll leave it on there. And then we'll just build 4 of these in a row. And that does leave us with room for maybe some for the Caterium. Okay, cool. Alright, so, because they're only going to be on 2 belts, thinking about it. So we'll just line this up with its buddy. And then this is going to probably go all the way over to the edge again. just to make sure that those bounding boxes are the same. Yeah, we're like in like a fraction from the edge. It's the same with that one. Alright, so that's 1, and then we need 2, 3, and 4. And that one has gone off to space. There it is. Alright, and the spacing between these should be the same now, I think. Yeah, looks like it. Great. So, are we encroaching on the area over there? No, we're not, so that's all good. So, just going to extend the foundations out a little further out this way. This is where we're going to travel back upstairs. No buffer needed on that side, though. We want the buffer first, and then we'll just send these belts back out. So, I've got a blueprint for this one, which is the stacked belts, 12 meters with 3 foundational width. So, they're aligned so that they should be lined up with all these storage containers, which was easy to do, of course, because it's just on the grid anyway. Is that aiming the right way? Yep, we're in the center, and we're heading straight out. Okay, all good. And I'm just going to put down... I don't know if we even need another one, do we really? I suppose no real harm. Build it pretty close. Although, if we could put it where it's not directly in line with any of the inputs, that'd be good. This one is... Oh, no, it's not, actually, technically. Oh yeah, they're offset from each other. That's interesting. That's just the way they are, I guess. Alright, cool. Anyway, I'm running back and forth a lot here. Let's just commit to it. I'm just going to move it over just a bit. Just make that last little connection bit there. Alright, cool. So, we have 4 belts. Let's just make sure that these are all hooked up now. So, Mark 3. That's connected. Ah. Oh, that's right, yeah. It looked like it was higher up than I thought. And this one is traveling along the ground. Alright, we looking good? Looking great. Right, next up is using smart splitters. So what we're going to do is grab a merger and just get an anchor point here. And just put it in front of each awesome sink. Just, actually, we only need to do it with that one, I think, yeah. Oh, no, actually, we do. So let's just put one there, but this one has to rise up to meet the height of its other thing. Alright, these are just for snapping. We'll get rid of them in a minute. Has to go up so high. Alright, cool. So, now, we should be able to get a smart splitter. So you need AI limiters for this. We don't need that many. And if we hold control, now it's snapping on correctly. At least in my testing before, it wouldn't do that, so putting down that little anchor there should help. The next one's going to be up here. When the belt flickers like that, we know we're in business. Just want to make sure that that's okay. I don't know if that's okay, so I'm just going to cut this. Just to make sure that that output is alright. It's hard to tell if we're on the output of the thing or this, so hang on, just to be doubly sure. Oh yeah, look at that. That's what will get you. Alright. Can't fool me. Alright, I'll just put that back in place anyway. That's why I was trying to avoid being too close to the input. Alright, so another smart splitter there. The next one then has to go up here. And the final one then up on top. Alright, great. So I'll just bring these belts across, make sure they're aligned. Okay, and we can get rid of all the mergers now, they're not needed. Alrighty, so why are we using smart splitters? Well, basically, we're going to set these to... This is going to be receiving our copper ore. And we want that ore to go straight out to the left. So say any. And then we want this to be overflow. Now, I'm just going to mention that again. We are not sending the overflow into the awesome sink. We're sending the overflow straight forward. Just bear with me on that, okay? That's the way we're doing it. Everything is going into the awesome sink. And the overflow is heading straight out. Alright, with that in mind, we'll make this a Mark III belt. We want all of it going out. And similarly, we can now use lifts to pull this down. We'll use Mark III. If I could snap onto it, that'd be nice. There we go. And get these out of here. Well, there's a mistake. Everyone is now going into an awesome sink. So what we can do is actually just copy the settings of this and paste it onto the other splitters. And then if we just check it, any and then overflow going straight, that's what we want to see. So that's pasted as well, and then we'll just climb up to this one and do the same. Alright, cool. Now, I would say that this is obviously going probably too far across. Alright, so I've just shortened that in a little bit. It was going a bit too far out, and we're going to be curving it around. So I'm just going to have to do the same that's done on this side, but on the left side now. So it's the exact same thing, basically. Alright, so now both sides are pretty much the same. One comes out a little further than the other. That's important because we want to rotate them around without them clipping through each other, but they should be the same height and everything else. So basically every storage container is a buffer, and every belt has a smart splitter where the overflow is going straight ahead and the normal input is actually going into awesome sinks. At least that's the way we've got it right now. So the last thing then is just to guide this back around and send it back out. Yeah, so the farthest belt's going to be the one that's on the bottom, like so. And then this one's going to go down to here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's right, although it might be too high. I probably should have just put down the actual belt thing before I did that. So let's see. Can we grab one of these as a blueprint, please? There we go. Alright, so just line these up. Moving away from me, heading straight down the middle. I'll see if I got the spacing on this right. Those ones look good. I don't have much spacing to actually even check if these are tilted or not. From here they look okay though. That'd be amazing if I got it on my first try actually. But it could just be the angle. It's really hard to see. They look straight to me. I think it's okay. Yeah, nice. Alright, cool. Wow. Super easy. Alright, so those are all lined up. So we just have to join these two belts together. Alright, so there we go. So the belts are now just turning. They're moving alongside each other, and then they turn again, and they join back out. Oh, I actually forgot a little bit here. There. Now, the only thing worth noting is that the inside of the belts here, so this right side, ends up being on the left side. So I just know that here has to join, you know, this side, basically. English is difficult. Alright, so let's just cut this bit away. Alright, so there we go. So that's all of the belts now traveling along. Obviously, there's just one gap left here I gotta fix. They're going downstairs and then back up and around, and that's all connected now as well. So why is this a thing? Why are we doing this? So the way it's going to work is awesome sinks are going to be on by default, which means all of the ore is going to flow into all of these 8 awesome sinks. When we want the ore to actually travel to our machines, we just flip a power breaker, which turns off the awesome sink, sending the ore along towards the smart splitter into overflow, and it'll flow out then. So it's kind of a way of like activating a belt, if you want to think of it that way. We turn off the power source here of the awesome sink, so we're not paying the 30 megawatts of power anymore, and the belts are flowing as they should be. That's the idea. And the reason is kind of, well, it's twofold. The reason that we want to do that, it's not just, oh, so I can click a button and see orb move. That is fun, don't get me wrong. But the real reason is because we want to prime machines first with water. We'll talk about that as we actually start turning everything on. I don't want to just give you lectures before doing things. Might as well talk about it as it's happening rather than building up to it. So trust me, there is a plan and we're getting there. The only thing now would be I got to hook this up to power. So there's 8 awesome sinks. There's 8 belts. But if you remember, these 8 belts go to 14 blocks. And it's the top 2 belts. In fact, what we can do is see that by down here. They actually have their signs on, right? We can see that the top belt is going to G, and the one that I can't see on the opposite side is going to N. So those two, one awesome sink is going to control the top belts. And then every other awesome sink for all of these. So that way we can say that there's a sink per every 2 blocks. And it's also just a way of saying, like, we've designed the power breaker room to have 7 switches, and that way it allows me to combine 2 awesome sinks onto 1 switch and have 7 switches in total. So I'm not sure exactly where we're going to bring that up. I'll have to look upstairs and see which set of power breakers are free, but it's probably going to be the next one over. Or we could do it on the opposite side. Actually, it might be kind of nice. Yeah, because we've got the water extractors here. I'm thinking this should be more refineries. Copper, Caterium. It's more directly involved with the water. I'm actually going to go with this section here. These are going to be the ones controlling the awesome sinks down below. So if that's the case, we can run in behind here and see where they line up. So this is them here. We'll drill down and see where we end up. So we're going to be bringing our power down this way. Not that we have to. We could move it anywhere on this floor if we wanted to. But this is a little spot that we could try to bring things up. It's actually right next to, remember I said, it's designed so that it'll never overlap with any of the other cable ties. So that's the idea working in motion there, or in full effect at least. Oh my god, what's happening? What's happening to my legs? I can't jump. There we go. So yeah, so it'll be a little finicky, but I'm just going to bring a wall down and attach things and then send it up. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Alright, so it's kind of worth thinking about which ones are going to line up where. So this is the cable ties that we're actually going to be using, and it corresponds to each machine, so that, you know, left to right. So if we wanted to go alphabetically, we have to make sure that this one on the left is A and B. So that's going to be that machine over there. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And we know that we're going to combine G with N, as we've done that in other places. So yeah, I'm just going to be a little lazy on this one, and say that this is just going to be A and B. And we can just join that over there. This one then is going to be C and D. This one will be E and F. And this one will be G. Let's wait for that autosave. Now instead of linking G straight into where it needs to go, I'm going to go along here. About halfway or whatever, and then join it. So those two are combined. And then we have, I'm just trying to think of how it goes. H and I, J, K, L and M, I think. So H and I there, J, K there, and L and M there. And they can just line up then. Alright, so it's a bit messy. I think I'll probably neaten up those cables, but I'm kind of crunching for time now. So we'll just leave it like that. But yeah, I'll probably neaten it up in a cosmetic episode or something, but that's going to be the general idea. So we'll go back upstairs now real quick. And just make sure that they follow their cables all the way back up. So this is the other one here. So the top of the second one is about there. I'll just go across like this, I guess, to make our 7 snap points. And then if we click here and just make sure we cut those lines, because that will break the entire concept of this. Alright, so you're hooked up, and we just keep going across. Alright, now they can join on to their bottom bits. Cool. Alright, there we go. So let's just do a little test. I'm going to say belt release AB is online. Now it says here the max consumption is 30. So it was correct. That means that, you know, 30, it obviously knew that on the power grid B it is hooked up at least. So I'll just try another one, E and F. H and I is one I think I might have done wrong, so I'll just put that one on. So just test these 3 and just go downstairs and see are the right ones on. Oh yeah, we can actually hear it. You can hear which ones are on. That's great. So H and I should be this one. Yes. Okay, good. All right. It looks like it's working. It looks like it's working. So the correct awesome sinks are on. The smart splitters are all ready to go. We're getting really close now. So that is the belt release room done, and the logic for it all hooked up. So 8 awesome sinks, 8 smart splitters, power management up to the power breaker room so that each one is controlled by a power breaker. except for the two on the end, which are controlled by just one power breaker because they only have one kind of block each to take care of. Okay, I think it's time we go out in the world and start bringing some ore into this place. What do you say? Next up is the fuel station. So we need a little station that's going to be allowing us to have trucks come in here and get their fuel. So I'm just going to tie up these belts together. Alright, so for a fuel station, the plan is pretty simple. So I decided that using this extra space here on the left, I'm actually going to make more truck stations. And you'll see why in a sec. So we want it to be at the same level, so I want to get rid of this part. Like this. Alright, so we'll grab one of these, boom, rotate it around, and slam it in. Is that it? No, it's slightly over. So obviously it's the same height and everything as this one, so we should be all good in terms of connecting these floors across. And the plan is to build, I can't build it right now, but the plan is to build 3 of these. So 1, 2, and 3, and that'll be it. So it's not going to have the final 2 on the end. There's a reason for that. It's because of the way the terrain is shaped down here, but also we don't need it. And I don't even think I'll need the other 2. It's just a redundancy and just in case. This place might end up receiving 1 or 2 other things in the future, but it'll just purely to make our lives easier. It's good to have the option, but I really don't think we'll actually need it. Anyways, the idea with this one is that we're going to hook it up to... Vehicles are going to unload coal here. And the coal is going to move around to this location. So if we make another truck station right here, and we aim it right out over the entryway, about there. And this isn't ever going to do anything. No vehicle is ever going to stop here. They're just going to pass under the arm. And as a vehicle passes through, it gets refueled pretty much instantly. So the way we do that is we have the fuel connection spot here. And we're just going to basically just hook it up to the output of this. So I'll very lazily just do it like this for now. Because like I said, I've been recording for nearly 7 hours. So it's been a bit ridiculous while I've been trial and erroring a few different things. So just to get it done, just want to hook that up for now. So this will need its own power source as well. So again, just going to be a little quick with this one. I've hooked up power to the truck stations in the power control room via that little node right there. So this way they should both get powered on from the same breaker anyway, which all controls all the truck stations. So that's all good. This one will just need the same treatment. So I would say bring this one out to here and bring that up to there. Now that's weird that it says no power. Oh yeah, I did flip the switch off actually, yeah. So it doesn't have power right now, but it will in a moment's notice. Alright, so by the way, I'm using a mod. The only mod that I have active in the game. I also use the pack utility mod to kind of fly around, do testing, and not during my save, it's always in a different save, but I also use it to get the cinematics. So just if people ever wonder what mods do I use, it's pack utility to do that kind of stuff, and then also this one, which is called Sky UI. It lets me set the time of day, so you can actually move it around. It sets the time of day, but not only that, it lets you set the length in minutes of day and night. So I've made day last 2 hours, and nighttime 4 minutes. So if you're noticing we're hitting nighttime a few different times, that's because 2 hours have passed. So yeah, so that's basically how it works. But yeah, it's a great mod. Recommend it. Sky UI. Sorry, I don't know if I said the name. Sky UI. You used to be able to make it rain, but it says it's disabled in update 8. So the button will not work. Yeah, there's no rain in this update. Anyway, so that's what we've gotten with. I'm just going to get rid of some of this temporary stuff now, because it might be in the way as vehicles are trying to pull out. And maybe that can stay, actually. It's not going to get in the way, I don't think. And we're going to be bringing in our trucks. We have our fleet of trucks ready to go. This is the fueling station, but we have to make our first delivery to actually make sure it gets its fuel. So what we'll have to do is head down towards where the coal is, set up a truck station there, and then drive the route so we can actually start making the delivery. So let's do that. That's so awesome, man. Look at the fleet. The fleet. They're ready to go. They actually have all of their lights on. Can't quite see it when you look right at them, but you can see it obviously on the ground. Okay, so I was thinking that we just build it. Look at that guy. He's back on the thing. That was there earlier. Wow, he got back up on it. Good for him. Yeah, so I was thinking of just basically making an area right where that fleet is.
and that's where we'll just have a truck station full of coal right now, and we'll just drive through it. So it's going to be a sort of a temporary one, because eventually we'll have this in a bit of a better place, its own kind of factory or building. But just a little area like that we drive straight through, knock these things down, not a big deal. Might as well take them while we can. And we'll set this to vehicle settings load, please. Alright, so hook that up to power. And we had coal coming in here before in our splitter, so we'll just use this and bring it straight over to there. It's as easy as that. Coal is now flowing into here. So what we got to do now is draw our first route as our first delivery truck. So we'll paint this one black, because it can be... Actually, we'll just do that color. Why not? Bit of black and copper orange. Kind of cool. So it's our coal delivery truck, our master coal. And I'll tell you what, we'll do a little harsh 90-degree turn right about there. And we'll hit start recording. Alright, there we go. So that's the first delivery of coal. I'll just make sure everything's all good, and then we'll just drive down and out of the way before we do our turn, just in case we bother others. Any of the trucks that'll be here in the future. And I'll try to stay a bit more central, just to get out of the way of any of those trucks, just in case they're pulling out at the same time or something. Alright, path can be now saved. So, save coal delivery to Copper Caterium. Alright, so in theory, that should never end. That'll just keep doing its loops over and over again, because we have supplied it with coal, and it's just feeding the factory with coal for the future as well. Okay, so that's our fuel station. You know, obviously a bit makeshift, but it's done. The concept is ready. Now we've got the miners and roads, then the truck routes and powering on. So again, I'm going to have to cut it a bit shorter, but we're definitely going to power on the factory. What we're going to do instead is just build a couple little mining hutches in a certain location and then drive a route to get up to it. Alright, so I'm just at pretty much the southernmost point in the map, and if we do a quick scan for copper, there's a couple nodes down here. So there's one obviously I'm standing right next to, and there's another one just a little bit further over towards the steel foundry. So just before the steel foundry. So I think these two are worth tapping. And then what I could do is bring the road down. Probably from that junction right there. Alright, so in order to grab these things, I wanted to make a sort of a blueprint for making a little mining hutch. That's what I called them before. So I tried making a few different variants to make them look kind of interesting. This one's like mostly... I guess we could just place it and remove it. But yeah, it's like mostly just metal wire railing and stuff in there. Thought it was kind of okay, but I wasn't loving it, so we'll get rid of that one. I also went with... I had another one... God, there's so many of these things. Yeah, there was one where it's like totally modular. There's like 4 or 5 components to it, but it ended up just being like way too big. You know, this is like one corner to give you an example of it. So maybe we could just, again, put a little piece of it down, and that was front right. I can see if I can find front left or whatever I called it. Yeah, front left. I can barely remember how it even worked. So that was the front there. So if I go to blueprint mode and I try to snap onto that. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Oops. So I've obviously built it into a tree here, but the general idea was that a truck station would sit in here and its arm would come out the hole there. There's 2 lights that would aim down. This is the road part, so you'd be driving like from this direction to this direction, for instance. And then it would have a back on it as well, where the miner would sit inside. So it's really tough to see because of all the trees. I don't want to delete the trees just to show this example. Is there the miner enclosure too? I think that was it. Yeah, I'm kind of remembering it now. So yeah, just basically wanted to show that I've been playing around trying to design cool stuff. But again, even though this is decent, it looks fine, it's a bit big just for one deposit. So I was trying to kind of figure out a nice middle ground between building something that was too big Although the idea was with this that maybe it could house 2 deposits, right? Sometimes you get deposits that are next to each other. So anyway, toying around with all these ideas, this is the one I'm going to go with for now. But again, because they're blueprints, they can always just be removed and rebuilt rather easily. So this is what I called an oil drill enclosure, because it was originally meant for oil in my previous series. Now I've actually modified it for this one, so it's not really the oil drill enclosure anymore. And I actually just named it that because I couldn't think of another name, even though it was supposed to be mining. So yeah, something like this. Can just sit there like that, and then we can go with the miner can obviously just sit inside of it, miner Mark II, and then we can just clear some of the foliage around here, I guess, just a little bit. So this one's kind of just built out in the open, right? Obviously you could put it on foundations, which is probably what I would do, but that's the general look and feel of it. Alright, so I've hooked up the second deposit to just a very crude enclosure again. It's now actually powered. There was a power tower just over there in the distance up on one of the roads, so I've hooked it up. The drill is going down, and our first batches of copper ore are rolling out. Now this is a Mark II miner, and it's doing 120 per minute. That's fine, I think. Now it's going along a squiggly spaghetti line all the way over to another one, and then joining into a truck station. So this, as you can tell, is clearly not done. You do not need to be trying to copy this. There's going to be one more episode after this, and this is where I'm going to really finalize and clean up some of the roads and getting the rest of the deposits. This is just going to be a nice proof of concept, so I'm going to let that do its thing and fill up for a bit. Before I draw out the route, I'm going to have to drive back to the factory one more time and get it ready. So what I'll need to do is have the awesome sinks turned on, the truck stations turned on, a few other things like that. So cool, actually, you can just see it over there. I'm excited. First 2 copper deposits are being tapped out of 8, I want to say. The other 2, there's 2 down in front of me right here. So there's 2 just right down in that little crater there. There's basically the one that we're getting that we built off of before over that way. But there's also one right across from it, so there's 2 there. There's 3 down in the crater where it's kind of like at the base of the cliff, if you can see in the distance, where the fog is. Now that I'm done turning, we can kind of look kind of over there. It's at the very base. There's a big crater. There's 3 down there. I think there's 1 or 2 around as well that I'm not really thinking of right now. But yeah, so those are all the ones that are going to have roads going out to them, trucks coming in. And where we can, obviously we want to have just less truck stations, but maybe put multiple trucks on it if the volume is really high, rather than having lots of separate truck stations and individual routes. It'd be better to combine as many as we can and just add more trucks to those routes if we need to. Hey, there's our coal truck, I think. It's not moving. Oh, it kind of is. Are you okay, friend? Hello? No way. It ran out of coal? That can't be right. Did I not do this right? Oh, something's not right. Oh, no. Some steel got caught on the belts. I don't know how that happened. I must have had some stuff in that truck that I didn't really realize. Oh, that makes sense why it ran out then. At least I'm not crazy. Okay, we'll freshen that up. And just check this again. Is there... Oh, yeah, there's lots of steel in here. Oh, no. How did that happen? Alright, so to test this out now, as we just drive through, I'm just going to drive through, not stop or anything, just driving through, and there you go, full fuel. So that's how that works, little checkpoint. Alright, so I just need to quickly hop inside. We'll go through this hole here. And if I just get to the power breaker room, we can kind of access the awesome sinks and have them all power on. I want all of them to be turned on. So that our first deliveries are just going to completely get sunk, and then we'll choose which ones come on separately and have the factory power on all at once. It's the water extractors. This is the... Yeah, so the belt release is what we want on. Alright, cool. The belt release are all activated, which means all the awesome sinks downstairs should be online. Maybe just like right here is where we'll start, right at the edge. What could go wrong? Alright, so start recording. Let's begin. Alright, load cargo. Oh, it looks like I'm using a Mark 1 belt or something into a Mark 3. I'll have to fix that. Do it when we close the loop. Alright, we're loaded up. Let's go. Alright, so the initial idea with this was that we're going to unload at every single bay. So I'm going to try that, see how it goes. So we'll pull down here, wide angle, and we're not going to the Caterium one. So we'll just cut across, kind of like this, and then try to cut in. So unload. And there we go. That'll be AB, I think, and then another one as well. I can't remember the other side of it. So again, unload. Obviously we don't have anything now, but over time, if we do this with all, they'll be kind of like getting manifolded. Does that make sense? Be very curious to see how this goes when we have like 5 trucks all loading, trying to unload at the same time, but I haven't tested that, so hopefully this works. If not, then we'll have to just kind of like load balance the truck stations a bit more. Alright, well there we go, that's it. So we can head back off now to close the loop. Alright, save the path. So yeah, I guess I'd have to... I mean, that's actually part of one of the reasons I want to change these mining hutches. Normally I have signs on them that will say like what the name of them are. So that way we can say like, okay, this is, you know, Copper 1 or whatever, to obviously the Copper Cat factory. So we'll save that just for now. Bonk. And enable autopilot, hide the nodes, get out. Also would like to color it if I could. Please don't run me over. I don't know where he's going. He's out of his mind. He'll fix himself, don't worry about it. Yeah, belt 1, and that's belt 3. Alright, so let's just make that Mark 3. Oh my god. It's trying to kill me again. They have a mind of their own, those things. That's Mark 3, is it? The whole way down. Okay, that's good. So that should be Mark 3 now flowing out. Oh, I forgot to grab my power shards, actually. Oh no, he's struggling a bit. He should make it though, don't worry. I'll put some foundation for him. So next time that doesn't happen, hopefully. So 700. 971. That's how much copper's in there now. Alright, I'm gonna race him back basically. And yeah, I'll catch you when we're over there. Alright, I actually got there just ahead of them, and they're both here coming in at the same time. Same time as an autosave as well, actually. Uh-oh. So that's weird. There's nothing in here that it's loading into anybody. But trucks are stopping as they go through? Damn, maybe my checkpoint idea doesn't work. I thought they would just drive through it. I never told them to dock or anything. But it seems like driving straight through, they just do it automatically? That's very weird. I didn't know they do that. Looks like he's fully unloaded already. Truck station is full up. Alright, let's check inside and what's going on. Oh, look at that. Oh, it looks so good. Yes. Now, we have to see that getting sunk. Or going into the awesome sink, but I just need to grab a bit of material first before we do. Yes, they are being ground up. That's what we like to see. Excellent. Alright, if we flip a switch, these should continue out to a different place. So obviously it's just copper ore, it's not really giving us anything in terms of tickets, it's just more to get rid of it and keep everything rolling. So, the last thing, see, something I never did was I never hooked up some sort of container for the actual ingots that we're going to be making. Because they're not going anywhere yet. So, what I'm going to do is just go upstairs and just make a couple of containers so that we can just fill up some copper really quickly. Right, so I'm on the second logistics floor, a floor that's completely empty. Just begging for development and machines to sit above it. But for now, what I'm going to do is just build some makeshift storage coming out of the glass containers. So that when the copper ingots travel up, they'll actually go somewhere and not just stall, and that will keep everything running, obviously. Just even for a little bit. I thought about building awesome sinks and stuff. I just thought it's fine just to have a few storage containers up here. Alright, and we can't activate that group, the group that's on the left of these ones. So this is A and B. So that's AA, BB, CC, DD. And this one would have been HHII, JJKK. So yeah, so we can just activate. That's nice. That way we can like kind of change around. It's not like linear. We're not just activating them all in a row. We're going to pick and choose a few different ones. That's a good way to test if things are really working or not. But I think that's it. I think the truck routes are now done. Yeah, well, a little bit. Ore is being delivered. We now just have to actually power it all on and watch it work. Hopefully. Cross fingers that it does work. And we can follow it around. Alright, so the time has come. I've decided to turn on global illumination. Things may get a little dark, but hopefully some of the bits that are kind of more complete will look great. So what we're going to be doing is powering on A, B, C, D, J, and K. And we'll see how this all goes. So one of the first things that I want to do is get the water ready, right? So we're going to go with extractors A and B. So they're activated now, in theory. It'd be cool if we had little cameras that could see these different areas. So that's A and B, C and D, and then we need J and K. Alright, because those are the ones that are hooked up to the glass cases that actually are hooked up to storage, so the ingots will go somewhere. None of the other ones are hooked up that way, and H and I is missing water extractors, so that one wouldn't be able to really function. So, the belt release would need to be turned off for the ones that we want to, correspond to, but we're not doing that just yet. We're going to let the water kind of fill up. The other thing then would be actually turning on the refinery blocks. So we know that the refinery blocks for A, we need B, C, D, and J and K. Now something I need to do is quickly go out there and just make sure that not all those machines are on. We need to turn off the ones that aren't the first 5 in the row. Alright, so from the looks of things, I know it's very dark, but the correct machines have their yellow lights on, and the ones that we haven't powered don't. So that's all good. Everything's working so far. Just gonna head downstairs now to the water extractors and see if they're doing their thing. I can't remember if I've left the pumps on or not either. I have to check on that. Alright, it's so cool to see. This is Group A, so A is online, and it's being pumped. So the whole thing is, if this starts to fill up, we know that the machines upstairs are full. That's how that buffer works. A few people were saying like, oh, I don't think it works that way. This will fill first because it's lower than what's up there. Totally sound logic, not going to debate you. All I know is that I've tested this many times, and this will only fill past roughly around the halfway mark. Or basically, you'll get a big injection. You'll see it like rising fast when the ones upstairs are full. So that's kind of how it works. It'll never fill until the ones upstairs are full. That's for sure. Alright, so that was A and B. So C and D should be online as well. Oh, it looks like they are. There they are. Looking good. And the pumps are going too. Right, so here we are. So these are the machines I have to turn off. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And 5 needs to be on 50%. Everything after that would need to be just offline. Now, I could switch every single machine off, or I could just disconnect that belt. So it's probably just a little bit more elegant right now. I feel like in future I will actually, behind the scenes, flip those switches, but for now we can just do this. So they're offline now. Alright, that should be all good. So we can run downstairs now and check on what the situation with the water is, because it still hasn't come up here, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Oh, you know what? I think it is. I don't think I ever hooked up the final pumps to power. Oops. I gotta change that. We run right into a, what's it called? What the hell do they call it? Stackable poles. God damn, my mind. Yeah, so let's just get a steel wall door. Alright. Oh, I know why water's not flowing. I forgot to hook up these pumps. Gosh darn it. That's alright. We'll just cut this for a moment. Let me have a look at where these pumps are. So yeah, there we are. Alright, so Group A and B now have their pump activated, so water should be flowing along. And we actually only want to be feeding 180. So we're going to lock the valve a bit back, keep it consistent. Now we should see this will roll up to 180 flow rate, and it should stay there, I hope. There we go, 180. Alright, so the valve is locked now at 180, because that's what we're making. It'll say 179.5 on the flow rate thing here. I don't know why it says that, because here it says 180. So it is flowing at 180, and that's what we need. Alright, so the other pumps accidentally have not been hooked up on this actual floor, so I just got to do that real quick. Alright, we're upstairs. Let's check machine number 1. Hey, it's at 50 out of 50. So let's check the one on the end. Oh my god, it's actually full as well. Wow. This means that this row is done and primed. Yes, this one's ready to go. Alright, so what we could do is start releasing the copper for Group A. We could just quickly check this one. Oh my god, they might all be full by now. Never interact with that. Yeah. Alright. Sorry, it's so dark, by the way. Alright, we're going to head down and release the copper. So we're going to quickly check the floor below and just make sure that that copper is still going into the awesome sink. Make sure the truck stations are still operational. It seems all good. He's on the way with the batch now. Something that I might do is just quickly drive out and overclock those machines. I have power shards, I just never did it. And that way we could just guarantee like a decent volume comes in. I'm not sure how much we need actually. I'll do the math on that in a sec. Alright, we're down in that crater that I mentioned before, which has 3 copper nodes on it. I am in no mood. Alright. Miner number 1. Miner number 2. Now, I'm only doing 2 because we only have 2 inputs for 1 truck station. I'm only hooking up 1 truck, so let's just do this. Something like that, I guess. Just give it a bit of space on either side. Alright, belt in. Belt in. Man, how quick would this game be if I didn't care about how anything looks, huh? Right, so there is actually a power tower around here. There it is. Alright, we're hooked up. And I just need to overclock these, and then we'll start driving this route and make a second delivery. Second delivery route, that is. So we need to go to 270. Alright, so we'll set this to vehicle settings, load. Alright, gap was fixed, belts are flowing. Alright, sweet, copper is flowing nicely. The belt release has been switched off, so now copper has started to flow up and over again. Which means our A and B belt, which is the one closest to me now on the very bottom, is getting its first batch of copper. The machines have been primed, so they're full of water already. Wow, this is further along than I thought. We're just there. Alright, here comes the first batch of A and B. For some reason, J and K, which is above it, is actually ahead of A and B, so it's rolling out now to its respective area. And A and B should be coming around here. Just like that. So this is now going to go down here, split once, split again, and start manifold going down here. Now it'll take a while for A group, even with the manifold system, just to finally get like up to 100%. But that's what we're going to be keeping track of. So those machines have their water now. They don't have anything else. So something I'm just going to do in the meantime is cut the belts back here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't go any further than 5. So we want to cut it after 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just cut that. Otherwise it's a waste of ore. It's going to go nowhere basically for now. Hey, just like that, Ed, that's our first bit of copper coming out. Love to see it. There we go. A historic moment. Copper is flowing. All right, let's go up to the glass cases. You got to check it out. Oh, yes. So good. It works. So that's AA and that's BB. I don't know why one of them wouldn't be flowing. Actually, I have to check on that. But hey, there we go. It's working. Panic over. All right, and then on the other side we have. So this would be. Whoops. This would be CC and DD, and on the back of that, then we have JJ and KK. All right, so JJ, KK. It works, man. Look at that, healthy belts. I like to see it. These are Mark III belts, but they've been divided so much that they'll only ever get like. I'm not sure. What's the output? Well, let's have a look. The output is 37.5, so it's 37.5 times 4.5. So each of these belts, when it gets up to 100%, will be traveling at 168.75 at the current, you know, tech that we're currently at. So that's all right. Happy enough. So Mark III belt is what we need actually then, because Mark II would only be 120. We did it. It took so much. And I love that it's done with the power management thing. I'm very happy about that. But what we're going to be waiting for is we're going to see flickering lights for quite a while. I would say it's probably going to be, if I was to hazard a guess, 20 minutes until the 5th machine down reaches 100%. And actually, this is the one that won't reach 100% as fast. It's usually the one before the last one. Because, yeah, as it's waiting to get its ore, and then it's getting split all the time. But because these refineries actually consume quite a lot in each single batch, every 24 seconds... Sorry, I hit the microphone there. Every 20... oh my god, I'm losing my voice. Every 24 seconds, they're consuming 6. So it's kind of like a big batch that gets taken away. So it's going to take time for those 6 to replenish and then get knocked on down to the next one. That's just going to keep happening for a little while. So we're going to see them sputtering on and off for a bit. But they should get up to 100%, given some time. Like I said, I think around 20 minutes is probably a good enough time for that to happen. So we have, oh my god, we're making loads. 248, 262, 151, 230. Yeah, they're not getting things evenly because it's based on the way the manifold deliveries is working. The two pairs should generally get things evenly. 89 and 49, that's a real big discrepancy. I don't know what's going on there. 275, yeah, that's fine. And that's fine as well. Alright, cool. Alright, one last thing we'll do is we'll just have a look at it with global illumination turned on just to get the full effect. And this is what it was all for. This was the vision that came to me in a dream. Except the idea was to have all of these online and to have lights and stuff in this place. We don't have any of that yet. But there we go, guys. So that's going to have to be it for this episode. I hope people are somehow able to follow along. All of the documentation will be provided alongside this episode. And hopefully some extra cinematics and things as well. But yeah, all the documentation, so the floor plan, the logistics plan, so you can see how everything was mapped out, even the power plan. And I'm hoping that will make things a little bit easier to understand, because I know, trust me, I know, that this is way too complicated. And adding power management on top of it, just see further I just felt like if we're gonna do it, let's just go the whole way then, you know. So that's where we're at. But with the blueprints provided, hopefully you guys can at least see what I've done and follow along that floor plan and the power map and the logistical map and all of that good stuff. Should be doable. By the time this comes out, it'll have been Christmas, I think, now. So I just want to say, wishing you happy holidays, happy Christmas to you and yours, and I hope you have a great holiday break, or just a relaxing one if you can find some time to get some peace and quiet, play some games or whatever. That's what it's all about. And obviously spend it with time with loved ones if you can. I'm actually spending it alone, just for a little while, but I'll be going home after Christmas, catching up with the family then. Alright, so I just want to say thanks. It's been a tremendous year. Appreciate all the feedback and everything, so just thank you again. And we'll get to some simpler factories in future after this one for sure. Alright, that's going to have to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.